Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. A big thank you to Stamp and Scrapbook Expo for hosting such a wonderful event. I am Kendra Krebs with Art Impressions, and I am so excited to bring you a very basic, fun watercolor tutorial today. But before I jump into that, I want to show you and tell you a little bit about our show special. So the special is going to be 25% off all regular price items on the website, and you're going to use ExpoFun21 as your coupon code, okay? And let me just say, before I tell you a little bit more, is if you're interested in watercolor, now is the time to go over there and get some of these basic things and use that 25% off discount. So on top of the discount, if you spend $30, you're going to get an exclusive 2021 freebie stamp. And then if you spend $75, you're going to get free shipping, okay? So once again, that's ExpoFun21. And let's go ahead and jump right in. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to do a really simple picture with some beautiful florals, some grass, and a little bit of a detail here on the front, okay? I'm going to show you a little bit about how to use the stamps, the basics, okay? These are really basic. So if you're just starting out watercoloring, this is a great tutorial for you because I'll just be using the basic foliage, the basic flower, and a pot set, okay? And I will show you these products when I flip the camera around so that you can see everything nice and close, okay? So I'm just going to quickly flip everything around and we'll get started on this tutorial. Okay, so let me show you a few of the products that I will be using for this tutorial. So the first one is going to be Flower Set 1, and that's number 4052, and you've got 6 little flowers in here, super cute. This is a must-have. Actually, these two, this flower and this foliage, foliage set 1, 4051, and this is going to come with 6 foliage, 2 grass, 2 fillers, and a couple of vines. This little branch is just so cute too. So these 2 sets are your basic must-have. If you're starting watercolor, you've got to get these 2, okay? And then also, we are going to be using, and excuse the little coffee stains, I did spill. So we're going to be using 5123 watercolor decorative jar set, and this is just a great set to get started because you can put florals in any of these and they're just so beautiful. Changing the color combinations or changing the placement of your flowers and foliage will produce many cards just with these 3 sets, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. A couple other things I'll be using are the Canson watercolor paper that I've just cut in a 1/4 size. I'm also going to use the Art Impressions palette. Okay, this is a really great palette, and actually let me just show you this. So this is it's a 6x8 plastic watercolor palette, and it's great to add colors onto your works of art, and I'll be showing you how to use that, okay? You'll also need acrylic blocks. So acrylic blocks are going to be what holds your stamps because the stamps are all on cling cushion, okay? So or at least the ones that you're going to stamp multiple times are all going to be on cling cushion. They're going to be rubber, okay? And then these acrylic blocks will hold your images. And then also I use for this project, I'm going to use a number 4, and you can see I use it a lot because the words are kind of rubbed off here, but it's a number 4 synthetic bristle brush, a round, and it's by Connoisseur, and we've got these on the website as well. So this is just a few items that I'm also going to be using for this project. So let's go ahead and get started. Apart from that, the markers are water-based markers, and we use Tombow. So these are water-based. They're really great. They play well with water, and part of the technique, and a big part of the technique, is coloring your stamp and then pulling the color out of the lines, okay, to create these beautiful works of art. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to use numbers 969, which is a really beautiful brown, and then also that 565 I was just holding up. So on the little picture here, I'm going to start with the 969 because I want this to have actually a really nice gray look to it. And so I'm going to do 969, and then I'm going to take that 565 and go right over the top of that. So I'm going to go right over the top, and when you blend that blue and the brown, you get a really nice gray tone. So before I stamp it onto my project sheet, I'm going to actually stamp this off, and you can see I've got a little paper here that I've used to stamp various items off. So I'm going to take my stamp, and I'm just going to stamp it right into the center of my paper. If it's a little bit off kilter, that's okay. Don't worry about it. All right, I'm going to use a little bit of water. I'll take this, and if I have a dry brush, I really want to make sure I'm opening the bristles and releasing that water. So I'm going to open the bristles, and then I'm just going to use my fingers to take a little bit of that water off. What I'm going to do now is just start pulling out some of this gray tone. And although my picture will be colored blue, I do want to get started on some of these shadows. Building the shadows in here is really, really important. We always want to leave a highlight when something is rounded, like our picture is. The body here is actually round. We want to make sure that we have a highlight left in the center of this. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of this color out of the lines. Notice I'm not tracing this. I don't want to trace the lines because that's going to give us a really thick outline, and it's going to take away from the detailed quality of this picture. All right, so now I'm going to take my little vine, and this one is in that foliage set that I showed you. I'm going to take the vine, and I'm going to use Tombow number 177. I'm not going to ink this whole thing. I just need about half of it, and I'm going to start stamping this in sequence, and I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna stamp this a bunch of times to get dark and light variation, which if you're not new to this technique, you know that this is very important, and if you are new, this is very important. We want that dark and light variation because that's actually what we see in nature. We see highlights and shadows and darker leaves and lighter leaves, and so we want to mimic that in our project. I'm going to ink this one more time and just put a few little leaves right here in front. Okay, and don't worry about swinging your paper around to accommodate your hand. It's much better to do that than to try to wrench your arm around and try to stamp it that way, okay? So now we're going to take our brush and we're going to dab some of these leaves to pull out the color. And I don't want to use so much water that I'm going to obliterate this design. I just want to blur the lines a little bit. So I'm just taking this, and I'm not going to touch every single leaf either. Okay, take a little bit more water. I do like to sort of bring the color out just a touch. I think it adds a really nice effect to this, and just pull out some of that color a little bit more. All right, let's add in some flowers now. So I'm going to take the daisy bunch from the flower set and also number 526. I'm going to ink just some of this as well. You know, this is the beauty of these stamps, is you can make them work for you. So you just ink what you want to use on that stamp. These are very versatile. And you know, you look at a bouquet and it's gonna look a little bit different every time, even if you use the same flowers in it. So, you know, maybe one area you want big giant blooms, and another area you just want a few flowers. You can still use the same stamp to do that. And notice I'm still using that stamping off method to get these in. I'll put just maybe a couple more over here, and just a very small amount, okay? Now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the leaves. So I'm just going to dab this just dab this like so. And I'm not going to touch every flower, but I'm going to go over it, leaving highlights. That's the biggest thing. That's the reason we don't touch every single flower, is because we want to leave highlights. And you can see that I did that in the leaves as well. I left a lot of white space, and this is very, very important. So we're going to just bring some of this blue out here. How beautiful is this already? So now I'm going to take my purple, and I'm going to use number 636. And this is the salvia. This is also in that flower set. I'm just going to ink a little bit of this, a little bit less than, or a little bit more than half of the flower, but I'm not going to ink the stem at all. So I'm going to do this in a bit of a pivot here, and just something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe I want something a little bit darker in the foreground, sort of coming over, and I can put those in. Okay. Now I'm going to use my brush and do the exact same things. Now these ones are, this purple is really loaded with color. So I'm just going to very gently touch some of these flowers, and keeping the integrity of the flowers just by dabbing a little bit. Okay, just something like so. All right, so let's go ahead and come down a little bit more here. Let's go ahead and put some color into our picture now. And I'm going to use my palette for this. And I'm going to use, excuse me, talking a lot today. I'm going to use number 526. And I'm just going to put that color on the palette. And then also number 565. And put that on the palette. All right, so I'm going to start with that 526, and I'm just going to begin to add this color into the picture. So I'm remembering that I need to have highlights in the center. That's my biggest goal when I'm adding this color into my picture. Is it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be like a perfect line of highlight in the center, but I need to have a highlight. And then as you come out to the edge, it's going to get darker. So it'll be the lightest here, and then as you come out, this is going to be the darkest area. So I'm going to take that color and just put a little bit more in here. And then I'll take that 565 and just start dropping this in as well, because I do really like those blues together. I think it adds something really special. So I'm gonna just come in with that and drop that in. Now I don't want to use too much water for this. The more water you use, actually the lighter the color will be. So if you use a little bit less water on the exterior of the picture, you'll have a darker value to give you that contrast. And we'll bring a little bit more down in here. Okay, so while that's drying, because we don't want to put an image in the center until this is fully dry in here, we definitely, if we did that, we would be having a big mess. So we want to wait until this is fully dry before we add in that really beautiful detailing in the center there. So what we'll do right now while we're waiting is put in our grass. So I'm going to take this one's from that foliage set I showed you. I'm going to take number 177 and ink up that grass. Now I'm going to stamp this in sequence also. And I'm just going to come here and dark to light variation, right? And then I'm also going to add a little bit of that 177 to my palette. I'll take my brush again and start pulling up on that grass to create these little grassy blades. I'll take the 177 And I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow under here and give it a place to sit. Just like that. Okay. I always like to sort of bring out a little bit of the color from the pot into the air as well, in the areas sort of surrounding this pot, because it just gives it another element of a background that it's actually in space, okay? So you want to feel that. Oh, I could use another second to dry. So I'm going to take my twin tone. This is the dark blue twin tone, and I'm going to put in my really dark values up in here. These are the darker shaded areas. I really like this twin tone for that because you can get a nice contrast. Now this area is going to be really dark because it's where the florals are actually sitting. And if you look at the main image of this, you'll see in this area right here, this is actually on the inside of the pot. So that's, or the pitcher. So that's going to be really dark there. Okay, now I'm going to take my, and this should be dry now. Yep, now I'm going to take my little detail bird, and I'm going to use number 969. And I'm going to stamp that off as well, just like I did before. We'll stamp that off because I don't want that too dark. And then I'll take that, and it doesn't have to be perfect in here, but I'm going to take that and just stamp it right in the center on that pot. I'll take my brush and just pull out a few of these little lines. We'll take the 565 on my palette and put a little wing in. And then you can just leave it as that, or you could take your twin tone, this is the brown one, and I'm going to add just a little bit more detail in here and darken up some of these leaves, give him a little eye, darken up his body. And that is pretty much it. How simple. So I'm going to always sign my work. I'm going to use this blue twin tone and sign my work. And there you have it. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for sticking around. If you enjoyed that tutorial, definitely check us out on social media. We go live on the Art Impressions Facebook page Tuesday nights with Back to Basics with me at 5 p.m. PST, and then Bonnie Krebs goes on every first and third Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. You can check out our YouTube for more inspiring tutorials. And of course, join us on Instagram, subscribe to our Facebook group, go on Pinterest, check out all the inspiration there. We have something for everybody, so absolutely check that out. Once again, our show special is 25% off all regular priced items on the website using Expo Fun 21. Now again, this expires June 7th at 11:59 p.m. PST. So if you want to get started with the Art Impressions watercolor technique, now is your chance, and you can do it with just a few simple sets, okay, that I highlighted in this video. Get the brush, get the watercolor paper, the palette, and then you are going to be off on a watercolor journey. So thank you again for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your time, and we'll see you next time. Bye.